I don't know where we left off. I'm going to read my intro one more time. I'm Rachel Rosner, the president of CGE. I'm super passionate about the importance of teaching climate justice in Evanston schools, and I am eager to hear what this group of people has to say on the subject. So I'm going to introduce everybody, and then I'm going to ask a round of questions. And when we have 10 minutes left, I will look at the Q&A for questions from the audience. So first we have my neighbor, Dalston Wooler. You can maybe put your hand, I guess, so you can see that the name's on the thing. If Dalston could, he would be Max, the golden retriever, his family's golden retriever, someone who loves nothing better than to inspect the world around him, sniffing flowers, playing with bumblebees, and searching out the smells of plants and insects, living in the moment, but sometimes wondering why all humans don't value and respect nature and all its wonders. Always fascinated by the natural world, Dalston loves to tend his edible garden, care for all animals, and always turns off the water and the lights. Awesome. Then we have Niall Rollins, who's 14 years old, and she works with Quest for Earth. She is an Evanstonian who lives with her parents, her baby sister, and her dog, and she's an 8th grader at Nichols and going to ETHS next year. Also, Aldric Martinez-Olsen, a first year at McAllister College in Minnesota, planning on majoring in sociology. And through his high school years in Evanston, he became very invested in sustainability and climate justice due to his involvement with E-Town Sunrise, the Community Service Club, and the City of Evanston government, where he was an intern in the sustainability office. I'm editing. His childhood in Chicago and time with family in Honduras has allowed him to see the effects of environmental injustice firsthand. And we have Becky Brodsky, who started working on school greening initiatives 13 years ago when her son started kindergarten. She helped found the District 65 Green Teams and is on the ETHS Sustainability Committee and serves on their waste subcommittee. Becky works as a zero waste schools consultant for the environmental nonprofit 7 Generations Ahead and for collective resource composting. And hopefully soon joining us will be Jeannie Albina, a former District 65 teacher who has 2 young children in District 65 schools. The past 3 years, she has worked with parent volunteers to prepare Earth Week curricular materials for District 65 students. So we've got an amazing panel here. I'm just gonna do like so. Let's see who we've got. Okay. And so I'd love to ask Dalston to start us off. And Dalston, if you can just tell us, why is it important to you that schools teach kids about climate change and how to take care of the earth?
So it's important that kids learn at a young age to take care of the planet, so it's not harder to learn later in life. And if they learn at a young age, it becomes the norm. And if they learn later in life, rather than learning earlier, then it's hard to transition. And if they learn earlier in life, then it's embedded into their minds. They have a longer time to make a difference, and they can become role models for other people to branch off of.
Thank you, Dalston. Wow, that's really insightful answer. Thank you very much. Really great point. Aldric, how is educating kids about the climate crisis connected to anti-racism?
Okay, so as a lot of you all probably know by now, the environment is a racial issue. Some racial groups are particularly Black, Indigenous, and people of color are affected by climate change more drastically than others. And this is because of years of backwards exclusionary policy that has kind of trapped people in systems that don't benefit them environmentally. So the first step to any type of change is awareness and education. And in my experience, a lot of change comes from politics, and environmental justice education gives kids an awareness of these issues that they can bring into their young adult life. And then later in life as they make political decisions. And even like even as a kid, even kids can make change in their community. There's like nothing more powerful than a passionate child's voice leading a crowd, as I've seen at many walkouts. And also, this type of education really helps students engage, I would say, especially for those who aren't inclined towards the sciences. It brings a more personal aspect in.
Love that. Thank you so much, Aldric. Yeah, you've lived it. You've been there with the megaphone, I know. Niall, how did you get involved in climate work? Tell us a little bit about Quest for Earth and your involvement in this work.
Well, I came to all of this. I had no idea about climate change, any of that, until I had joined my first session of Quest for Earth in 5th grade. And after that, I knew I was gonna be working with like nature and like going on walks and stuff, but I didn't know that I would be learning about the environmental problems and climate change and all that type of stuff, because I wasn't even aware of it in 5th grade. So after that, I was doing activities. We had, the best part about it was doing activities, which was so engaging for me, because if we just had someone talking at the front, just talking about climate change, I probably wouldn't have been that interested in it. But because we were doing so many activities and seeing so many examples of the problems, I definitely got into it. And after that, I became a mentor with Quest for Earth. So I started working with other kids who were younger than me. And I was learning more as time went on, as I was also helping other kids. And that's really how I got into it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Niall. Becky, tell us, do you see, because you're a green schools professional, what are the most important ways that schools can become living laboratories, right? Where students can live this stuff every day and change their habits out the gate.
Yeah, like Niall said, I think it's a good point. You're learning by doing. So you can use the building itself as a teaching tool, studying the systems of the building, HVAC, energy, waste systems, getting involved, as many students do, in the lunchroom, waste sorting, composting, recycling, looking at issues of food waste reduction. So all of these really hands-on engaging activities. And then of course, using the outside of the building, the school gardens, the school grounds. I mean, everywhere you look, there's an opportunity to learn and to engage students. It does not have to just be in science class. It's really using your surroundings, and sometimes, being a bit creative with it and figuring out how to best engage the students in their own learning. I think, yeah, and a lot of times you hear the green buildings being used as a teaching tool, but it doesn't just have to be a green building that has, a LEED certified building with one of those, panels that gives all of the statistics about energy usage, et cetera. It can be just your classroom and talking about everything that's happening in your classroom, using natural daylight, making sure your sink isn't leaking, make sure that kids know what they can and can't recycle. So yeah, just there are learning opportunities everywhere in the school.
Thank you so much. That's, yeah, very, well, we'll talk more, especially about kind of what is happening in Evanston in this regard. But I'm so happy Ms. Albina has joined us. And just say hi if you can hear me, Jeannie. I just want to make sure we're all good.
Yes, I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me all right?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead. Yeah, wonderful. So Ms. Albina, tell us a little bit about why climate literacy matters to you and what have tell us about your work in making it happen in Evanston.
Sure. Climate literacy to me matters very much like existentially, just as a human, because we depend on a healthy planet to survive. And also because I think I'm glad to see increasingly that folks are recognizing climate justice as an intersectional social justice issue. And while we can't force children to solve the problems that the adults caused, we are leaving this planet for our kids, and they'll be better able to make the sort of decisions that can sustain healthy lives for them over time if they have some climate literacy, if they understand where the problems have come from and what sorts of things we can do. Great.
Yeah. I mean, it's really something when you think about the role and the power of education and the information that people don't get. Oh.
I'm sorry, come again, what was that last?
Oh, I was just saying, you know, thinking about the power of our schools and the information. I mean, how we choose what students do and don't learn, and the power
Right.
that gives. Yeah.
And you know, it's complicated because there is so much to learn in a school day and a school year, and I increasingly feel like little bites here and there. We don't need for climate to be the only thing that we talk about in school. But small projects, small units, you know, it's that steady drip of like, this matters, this is important. I think that makes the largest difference over time.
Also, if I could, can I interject?
Please.
Sorry, I was just saying it's easy to incorporate, as you know, into different subjects too. So if you're studying social studies, if you're studying literature, you know, choose things with a theme, you know, centered around climate. It doesn't necessarily have to be kind of an individual lesson. Can just very easily art class, you know, it can be easily incorporated into every subject.
Yeah.
Agreed. And I increasingly feel like that's kind of the way to do it. I mean, I remember, you know, in college when I just happened to take 4 classes that all ended up kind of being about the same thing, and I hadn't anticipated it, and how much that meant in terms of like depth of understanding. And I think for kids, if they hear it a little bit in art class, like you said, and they hear a little bit in social studies, and it's the cumulative effect of exposure to climate change is real. It is a problem. It is something we can address. I think that adds up over time.
Aldric, do you feel, tell a little bit about your kind of climate education coming through District 65, at least middle school, and then through ETHS. What did you get and what could be better?
I'm sure things have changed. I mean, it hasn't been that long since I've been in middle school, but I didn't really learn much about climate change and, more importantly, climate justice in middle school. We probably had some things like sprinkled in here and there, but none of them were impactful. What was most impactful for me was actually like listening to a news segment while like driving home with my mom about the water shortages that are like predicted for 2050. And I was like, oh, that's gonna be when I'm, 48 and I'll have my own children to worry about. So it is, so most of my education came from outside of the school, which, if you're a busy student, or, unpassionate student, you're not gonna really be going out and looking for that. And it would have been nice to know a little bit earlier, because I finally got involved with climate stuff in junior year of high school. And it was actually through the youth summer employment program where I worked with the city. So it did improve, the education did improve. I remember having more units about climate justice and climate change. Specifically my urban agriculture class, it was really great. And we had a greenhouse at ETHS. But again, like if I wasn't, there's also an AP environmental science class, which I did not take because I'm not a science person, but if I were not this type of person, I don't know if I wouldn't necessarily want to take these classes. And they really can be fun. So I think there should be more of an emphasis put on them and maybe an
It's like
expansion.
lucky that you were exposed to it in a
Yeah.
way. It was almost a matter of luck that, yeah.
Yes, matter of
And
luck.
for-
I don't think that if I took this job, I would have been as involved as I am now.
Can you say, like, what's your ideal vision?
For
For what do you think should be happening? Let's just say with ETHS, or you can go K through 12 if you can say it in a few sentences.
Okay, well, I mean, I totally agree with previous statements, how it can be worked in small bits in different classes, or even just like a unit in like biology or whatever. And I would love to see an expansion, or maybe like some sort of class, a science class about the environment that's not AP level, that's not, that's towards students who aren't really science inclined like me. And I would love to see an expansion of the agriculture program.
Great ideas, thank you. Dalston, what do you recommend for, like, what do you think are like kind of the top 3 things that a kid could do for, to help the planet?
Well, spread news with other people, like ideas, things that need to be done, ways to have it done, to make everyone more aware about what's happening, and refuse things that you don't need, and like, for example, at a restaurant, refusing straws or plastic utensils or napkins, and then that stops the need for it to get thrown out or recycled even, and having that impact, that global impact. And like, start a conversation with someone at the restaurant, and then stop the importing of plastic cutlery, and then that inspires other restaurants to do the same. And transportation too, I think, is a big one. Just switch from any vehicles to walking or sprinting. I've been doing a lot of I've been doing a lot of rollerblading and biking.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. And yeah, I really like what you said about educating other people. And in fact, like in the adult environmental world, people are always like, kids tell their parents, like, it's not a joke. It's not just cute and symbolic. It's like kids are getting the message out that, and parents do want to do it for their kids. So it's a lot of power that kids hold for yeah. Niall, how about you? How do you recommend other kids get involved in this stuff, or any thoughts about that?
Well, agreeing with Dalston, first they have to know about it, to get into anything. But along with that, I think it's just having opportunities, because I probably, like, if it wasn't for the one, like, I joined Quest for Earth because my friend found it and was like, well, I don't want to be alone, so you should come with me. And so my mom signed me up. But if it wasn't for her, like, telling me about it, I probably really wouldn't know about it.
Right.
I've actually had one big thing that was like involving all of this. And that was probably why Miss Stone was here, because she was my 6th grade science teacher. And we had the whole like thing with Evanston, where we made, we had different inventions that had to do with climate change, and we had like different sectors of it. And that was really fun because it was like we were so creative. Like our teachers weren't really, I mean, they were helping us, but we were coming up with our own thing. We were making our own examples out of cardboard or plastic or like hot gluing stuff, all that. So having the opportunities to, and having kids know that they have the opportunities is really important. But I think that's the biggest way I recommend people to get involved. They know about it. They have opportunities. They know that it's not just going to be a class where they sit and listen to someone explain something. It's something that they're involved in and they are being creative with. And yeah, I think that's my biggest recommendation.
Man, this panel is brilliant. I'm so excited. I that's totally on point. Hands-on experiential learning. And I actually was part of that Evanston program that was every sixth grader in Evanston. And yours must have been the first year it happened, and now it's in its third year, that program. So there is now, for the third year, one grade that has a comprehensive, every kid has access to some climate education. But we'd really, and I know Becky and I and Miss Albina, like there's and other people who are listening right now have had to hustle a lot and work to make this happen. And we're really, our dream is that the school districts really take ownership of it in a big way. And Quest for Earth is an out of school program. So that's, fantastic that Niall tapped into it, but it's another case where, right, not everybody's gonna find out about it or have access to it. So how about, sorry, scrolling. Becky, talk a little bit about how the city and schools can partner to reach Evanston's climate goals.
So as most of you probably know, I would imagine Evanston has a climate action resilience plan. And as two of the largest institutions in the city, it is imperative that the school districts are aligned with CARP and that they are working towards the same goals, the goals outlined in CARP. So I think the first thing that needs to happen is that the school districts need to understand what CARP is about, be very familiar with it and the goals that it outlines. And they need to, ideally, the city and the school districts would work together to create plans, an individual plan for each school district that has goals that align with CARP, and figure out some sort of action plan, the step-by-step. Obviously, it can't happen all at once, just like CARP's not happening all at once, but step-by-step goals and action plan, how those goals are going to be implemented over time. And that, of course, requires a partnership. There really needs to be, I feel, more of a partnership between the city and both school districts, because again, without the school districts, the city will not be able to reach its climate goals. There's no way. So it's imperative that there's a collaboration among the three entities, and regular meetings, check-ins, accountability, and involving city staff and community members, and then of course leadership from both districts.
Great. I want to encourage folks to put questions in the Q&A, because in a few minutes I'll be looking for those, and you could actually mention people by name if there's somebody who you'd like to hear from. Ms. Albina, do you want to say a little bit more about kind of your idealized version of District 65 and 202 with respect to climate?
I can say some ideas, but I think it's important. I am in no way the be all end all. I was a teacher in the district for 4 years, but and it's hard to speak to 202 just because I don't know much about 202, but I can speak a little bit to my experience in D65 and what I think would be great to see. I think that there are a couple angles into having a really climate responsive school district. And probably the number one entry point is to have curricular offerings that teach the science, and what's great is that, give me one moment. Okay. What's great is that the district has adopted a next generation science standard aligned curriculum that will teach kids more about, I mean, there's like one whole section of the standards that is about human interactions with the environment. So students will be exposed through the curriculum to the fact that yes, humans do impact our environment. We create and destroy habitats, and there's an impact. There's a unit in 5th grade where students study Balinese rice farming. Apparently it's extremely the way that they use water, they don't need any irrigation. It's just like the Balinese rice farmers have figured out the magic. So students are exposed through the next generation science standards to ideas about climate and sustainability and the fact that humans, we have an impact. And just for the sake of transparency, I left the school district. I work for the company that makes the science curriculum. So just for the sake of transparency, I do work for them. And I do think it's a good curriculum that will start to expose kids in terms of curriculum. But then, as we were talking about before, if it's just isolated to science, as I'm checking for names, as Mr. Martinez-Olsen pointed out, then you get a whole bunch of kids who you say science and they kind of tune out. Well, what happens for them? So I think, we have the curriculum, but it would be great to get more cross-curricular engagement. And I think it has to do with priorities. So when the district says that if district leadership were to say climate justice and climate education is a priority, when we're teaching social studies, we have to talk about the environment, the natural environment in which we live, who has access to what kinds of environments, what are, not when we're building communities, in younger grades, they often in social studies talk about communities. Well, the community involves the non-human living things in the environment. And if it comes from the district, that is a priority. The Evanston teachers are the hardest working teachers I have ever had the honor of working with. They will rise to the challenge and they will teach what the district has prioritized. But up until now, my sense is that, we have a lot of priorities. There's a lot of things District 65 schools wants to teach their kids, and it's hard to just hone in on one thing. But I'm hopeful that with time and again, more awareness about the real intersectionality of climate justice, it can start to come more onto the radar of district leadership. And then if they set it as a priority, the teachers will absolutely pick up the charge. And this is in no way, I'm not pointing fingers at district leadership. They're very busy people trying to balance a lot of stakeholders and input, but it does kind of need to come both from the bottom up. I think the kids are engaged, and we're going to have a comprehensive science curriculum in place, but it also helps when it comes from the top down. And then I think there are also some structural things, like if every kid in District 65 walking to their school saw solar panels on the roof, that would say something. That sends a message about priorities. So I think that there are also some things that we can do in terms of facilities that just get it on kids' minds, like, yeah, buildings have solar panels, duh. And then when those kids grow up, they'll be like, well, of course we have solar panels on my home. So those little things really do make a difference.
Like creating a cultural shift.
Yeah. I think, I was just going to say, I think about my own kids where we compost at home, and when they go to other people's houses and they don't have, back in the before times when we went to other people's houses, they often didn't know what to do with their food scraps because they're not used to putting them in the trash. Let's make things like that normal for kids in the district all over. And I know we're working on, composting, but even things like solar panels, or let's just make it, the more it's normalized, I think the better outcomes we can have.
Yeah. And I just want to mention, if I'm correct, in elementary school, they have 40 minutes a week sort of divided between social studies and science. So it really makes it so important that it's infused across the curriculum and not.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the minutes. Yeah, I'm not sure what the minutes are exactly, but it's not a ton. Yeah.
I'd say the other piece is acculturating teachers and educating teachers so that they carry that torch forward. Aldric, I know Miss Stone was excited to have you talk about your story about your experience at the recycling center when you were an intern in the sustainability office. Do you want to share that?
Sure. Also, I just want to say about teaching teachers or acculturating teachers. When we did the compost program, like pilot program at ETHS, the students were definitely a little better at composting than the teachers. It was funny, I thought it'd be the other way around, but it wasn't. So about the recycling facility, I went there in the summer of 2019, and it was kind of a shock to see, first of all, how badly people were recycling in, the northern suburbs, and then also like just how like mistreated and trapped the workers were, and how all the faulty recycling was like putting the workers in danger. The three examples that stick out to me were well, first of all, it was extremely hot and like cramped in the space, and when people recycle plastic bags, the workers have to take breaks from their shifts, or during their breaks they have to go climb into like the grinder things with like the sharp, whatever they're called, and cut the bags out themselves. And then if people recycle syringes, the glass and like needles explode when they get crushed, and sometimes it can cut the workers. And if they recycle some sort of battery, also the pressure causes it to explode and start fires, and they have to put them out really quickly. And a lot of these jobs are low to minimum wage, and it's a lot of non-English speakers who that is like the job that is most accessible to them at the moment. And
right, so that's an environmental justice issue.
It is, and it's something that, of course, like the companies aren't going to make public, but it's so important for people to know. And I would love to have a field trip to a recycling facility because that's the first time I had like felt passion before, but that's the first time I was like, okay, this is what I need to tackle.
Back in my nature center days, the school of thought was that every kid should visit a landfill, a sewage treatment plant, and a slaughterhouse so that they could really see how everything fits together. But I don't think we're quite there yet. Becky, you want to talk about what you recommend parents and other community members can do to encourage schools to take action?
Sure. The biggest thing is to speak up. If you see something that concerns you, if you hear something, if you want to see your child getting, climate literacy in school, a climate education in school, speak up. Because that's how this started. All of this started for me. First day of school, at the welcome coffee for kindergarten, there were plastic water bottles everywhere going into the garbage, not a recycling bin in sight. And I approached the principal, and it all went from there. So if there's something, it's like, if you don't take action, if you don't fix it, who's going to? It's like we all need to take it upon ourselves. It isn't somebody else's job to do. It's all of our jobs. There are lots of opportunities to speak up. Obviously, emailing school board members, emailing school superintendent leadership, and also attending school board meetings. There's always an opportunity for public comment. I think they need to hear from as many people as possible to know that there are a lot of us out there who care about this, and that's important to us, and it's important to our kids, and also encouraging your students to speak up if they're comfortable, and speaking up at board meetings, because that's very powerful, as you guys on here know who've done it. It's a pretty amazing thing, and they it's very impactful for them to hear from students.
It made me think too, though, about the shift that's happened in the district around anti-racism and equity curriculum, and I grew up in Evanston. I went to Washington and shoot myself, right? And I've seen how that has changed in terms of what we learn about history and how people have been treated in our country. And this climate justice is part of that same conversation. that it's information that's being withheld from kids that they need to be empowered to take action. So I'm always sort of wary of being like kind of that white mom who's saying we should be, you know, like the green narrative is I mean, because the environmental movement is largely white. So I think it's so important to emphasize that intersection and that it's about empowering all kids, but especially kids of color right now. So
And
So I was just going to say, I wonder if,
oh, sorry.
I was I wonder if that's even, I don't know that that's like as true as it used to be. I'm Latina myself, and this is like definitely a passion project for me. And when I think about Black Birders Week or, you know, Black AF in STEM, like there's a lot of really cool stuff going on. And we already know that like globally, the people who suffer at the hands, like as a result of climate change are Black and brown folks, are folks who live in, you know, who live on coasts. So I think it's almost like we need to kind of break that narrative that caring about the earth is a white folk thing. I think we need to work on rewriting that script, because I don't, that may have been true in more true in like 19, you know, I'm thinking when the first Earth Day came around, but even then a lot of civil rights activists were involved and were marching because it was their bodies that were being polluted. So
absolutely.
I think that's just,
well, I mean it more as a way that the environmental movement needs to be more inclusive. Certainly not that anybody else is not stepping up, but that the movement. Yeah.
Rachel, we have a question from Joshua.
Okay. You want to read it?
Sure. How can environmental justice really be effectively integrated into the curriculum? How can parents help advocate for it?
All right.
Who wants to tackle that?
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I think it's really interesting, like having parents come into this, all of this, because my parents didn't really do any of this before I had even joined Quest for Earth and learned about this. We kind of just, you know, threw everything in the garbage. I always had the lights on, all this, like doing all the normal things, right? But in the past few years, we've learned to like turn off our lights and just have our windows on until it gets, or have our windows open until it gets dark. We have a big compost in our house now. Well, it's outside, but we have a big compost now. So we compost everything that we can. We have a paper on our what's it called? Recycling bin, so that we know what to recycle and what to throw away. So just little things like that. I'm not saying like you have to learn from your kids, but for me in my situation, like they learn from their kids, and that's definitely one instance. Another thing is parents learning for themselves, and then, you know, implementing that into their family norm, because that's our norm now. And it definitely wasn't 3 years ago. So for parents, I think that's something that goes both ways for kids and parents. You can learn from each other, and then just implementing that into your normal life and having that be like a thing that then turns into, we talked about this earlier, turning that into a thing that everybody does all over the world, or just in your community, you know? So yeah, that's what I have to say about the parent thing.
Thank you. Are there?
I think as far as his question regarding, you know, advocating for the climate justice curriculum, I think, again, contacting school leadership and, you know, potentially, you know, there are already people kind of researching, but seeing what other school districts around the country are doing, because there are plenty of school districts that are teaching this to their students, sharing those examples, showing that it is possible with all of the other constraints and the requirements that, you know, educators, you know, the districts need, you know, have on them. It is possible to incorporate this type of curriculum. So I think emailing, you know, the school leadership and letting them know that this is something that you want to see, and then possibly, you know, sharing those examples, and then banding with others, join District 65 green teams. This is something we talk about quite a bit. And, you know, the more people who are involved in these efforts, the better. So we need as many people as we can get.
Can you say how to join the District 65 green team, Becky?
Good question.
How to join it? Sorry to cut
Let's see, the email. I'll put the email in the chat. So you can email us. Hopefully we'll start meeting again someday, maybe over the summer. And there's also talk of possibly having more of a committee at the, like a sustainability committee, kind of like we have at ETHS, where it's a combination of community members, teachers, students. So more representative, so not just kind of a parent group. So we'd like to see that happen as well in District 65. So yeah, I'll put the email in the chat.
We should have about 1:45 now, so
Okay.
about 10 minutes total left. We do have a
I
question.
have
from
one more
Kristen
question
Brown.
for, yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Go ahead, Rachel.
I'm gonna do it. So this is for Niall. She wants to hear a little bit more about Quest for Earth. What is it? And she thinks it's especially cool that you went from a participant to a mentor. So yeah, tell her anything you want to about that.
Okay, so I'm honestly not sure exactly when Quest for Earth started. I'm pretty sure it started a year before I came though. And it's basically a group of adults and now mentors. Before it wasn't mentors, but then me and two, well, it was two from my group, and then after that it became more from the next group. But with adults and mentors, and we have 4th to 5th graders who come in and we learn about climate change and environmental justice and all that, and we do a bunch of activities. When all this COVID stuff is over and we kind of get back to our normal lives, we want to implement going places more, because the year that I went, we went to the water plant, and that was really fun, because that was another thing, like how Aldric, I think that's how you say your name, what he was saying, like he went to the garbage place, and so like seeing that like firsthand is definitely gives you like a big thing. So that's what we do in Quest for Earth. We do activities. We've done we've made filters like to clean dirty water out of like just normal things you'd have around your house. So we've done that. We've planted things. We've made bird houses, like just activities like that, learning about climate change, learning about Evanston, learning about how we can help, learning about different places we could go, different things we could do. Just so basically it's just kids learning about, the best we can do, and the best we can do for the earth, basically. So yeah, it's really fun. You can eventually become a mentor if you're reached out to after, but yeah, that's what it is.
And am I right? It's also like, because I know Melanie West from TIS Media is a leader there, right? I mean, it's her thing, right?
Yes.
And so there's a media piece where you are educating other people about this. Am I right about that?
Yeah, definitely. Like you talking about me and the mentors?
Yeah, about Quest for Earth. That's sort of part of its thing.
Oh yeah,
right?
Definitely. Yeah.
Great.
We even have a new program we're doing with families, which is fun too. So.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
We were working on that. It actually like recently launched, and we worked on that for a few months, like over the COVID thing, on Zoom and stuff. And so it's basically just like families having different activities, and they get different points for it depending on how like big the activity is. That has to do with like with environmental change. So things like recycling, or going out and picking up garbage in your neighborhood, or turning off your lights for, all from this time to this time during the day. Just little activities like that. Or there's some bigger ones that give you bigger points, and then you get like a reward. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's super cool. Aldric, there's a question for you about, can you tell about the ETHS, your experience with the ETHS Sustainability Committee? So talking to the school board, and also what got done while we were there.
Yeah, so it was an interesting experience. So for my senior year, I was involved with that, and it was a bunch of students and staff members and community members, and we would come together maybe twice a month and split up into different sections that involved, you know, either education or energy or waste. And I would say there's progress made. We were able to, I haven't been back to a meeting for a long time, but last time I was there, we were coordinating plans with a outside like sustainability consultant, and that was who has done like a bunch of amazing work, and that was cool. And we you know,
Compost was a big deal.
yes, we implemented I was about to talk about, we implemented a composting program, which hopefully is going to transition to later years. But it was really cool just to see that it could be done, and it was like reassuring. And I loved having the opportunity to speak with higher ups and at least get some sort of ideas planted and gears moving. And so yeah, that was my experience.
And in fact, a school board member put a comment in the chat, Gretchen Livingston. So she's saying she appreciates all your comments. She's learning from this panel. All right, we're getting close to time to wrap up. I am so grateful to each of you for participating in this juicy conversation. And I look forward to continued conversation and seeing where, I mean, Niall will be bringing her power to ETHS, and Aldric into adulthood, and Dalston is playing the long game. So, and I do feel like there's a real shift happening in the conversation, and it's really exciting. And you all did a brilliant job talking about it. Again, thank you, panelists, and take good care. I really appreciate you all.